Veronica Mars just made it to Netflix. So we've been watching the series for the first time, and now we're going to talk about the movie, which is not on Netflix, and I'll explain why in a second. But you can find it in all sorts of streaming platforms for around $4, and I suggest you do, because it's kind of fabulous. I know it gets mixed reviews, but I thought it was fantastic. And it takes place 9 years after season 3. And in this video, I am going to talk about how it explores the question of whether we can ever actually change who we are. And it does that in a really fun, sexy, Veronica Marsy way. This film came about in 2014, and what happened was that the show's creator had been stuck in development with Warner Brothers, who owned Veronica Mars, still owns the series, for a long time. Development hell is an actual place in the film industry, and you can get stuck there for years. And eventually he just got sick of it, and they decided to do a Kickstarter for the movie. They basically said, look, we'll get the money, let us make the movie. And they raised about $2 million on the first day, but they ended up raising $5.7 million. And that was the film's budget. And they had great perks, like you could pay $10,000 and get a little speaking role in the film, as long as you could act your way out of a paper bag. And it was a testament to how much people connected to these characters and to the series, and how much they wanted to see them back. And when it finally came out, people would cheer when their name came up, because they put in every single person who backed it is on the credits, and people would just like erupt in joy. So it's a beautiful story of how if people love your series and your characters, they will put themselves out there in order to see them come back on the screen. And as someone who's really, really interested in the ways that people and relationships change over time, it was a great treat to watch Veronica and Logan and Keith and all of these beloved characters come back to us after 9 years. And some of them changed a lot. Actually, I would argue only 2 of them changed a lot. A lot of the others tried to change. Some of them stayed the same. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how that pans out in the film and what that tells us about human nature, according to Rob Thomas of Neptune. One of the great things about Veronica is the way that Kristen Bell plays her with such an amused disdain by the foibles that surround her. And that disdain has only grown in the last 9 years, despite the fact that she has, in theory, really cleaned up her life. When we see her for the first time in the film, she's been interviewed by the great Jamie Lee Curtis for one of those high-powered law firms in New York, whose job is literally to make sure that the Fortune 500 companies that get lawsuits that sound like they might get them for the messed up stuff they do can make those lawsuits go away before they get anywhere. So this is not a job that you would imagine our former Veronica Mars would want. She spent her life trying to stick it to the Canes, who are basically a Fortune 500 company. We learned that she went to Stanford for the rest of her undergrad, and then she went to Columbia Law School, and she's still her. They ask her about her sex tape with Piz, and she's fabulously unrattled by any of it. She has all the power that she always had, but she seems to be going in a completely different direction professionally, which on paper sounds good, because she'll make a lot more money and she'll be in less danger, at least her body. I feel like her soul would be in a lot of danger in this job. And of course, this couldn't possibly last, because it turns out that back in Neptune, place she left behind, Logan is accused of having murdered his ex-girlfriend. And he calls her after 9 years of radio silence. And of course, she must come and rescue him, obviously. And what happens is that when she returns, she realizes that in the 9 years she's been basically gone, Neptune has fallen into a den of iniquity, I think is what she calls it. It is so much worse than it ever was. The Fitzpatricks look like amateurs compared to whoever's pulling the strings right now. And that doesn't quite sit well with her. And as she tries to help Logan clear his name, she starts getting pulled back into the person that she's always been. And there's a great scene where she finally opens this big chest and she takes out this box that says accessories, and there you have it. There's her taser and her burner phones and all the accoutrements of her career, and she finds the purse, the iconic purse, and she realizes she's addicted to this life. She's addicted to solving these cases and to sticking it to the criminals, which of course is exactly the opposite of what she would be doing if she took this job. And even though she sees it as a problem because she keeps calling herself an addict, I would argue at least she's being who she is. And she's making the world better. It's hard to make the world better in a noir, but she was certainly not going to be making the world better back in New York. So it is an argument for us to embrace those parts of us that make us who we are and help us fulfill our mission. As the film opens, Veronica isn't just trying to get this high-powered lawyer job, but she's also dating Piz, Christopher Lowell, and he hasn't changed that much. He's still so sweet and so in love with her, and they've been together for a year. And the one thing that has changed is that his career, which was always promising, has grown. Now he works for This American Life, and we got a fabulous Art Glass cameo in the film. And she is in this very loving, stable relationship, which bores her a little bit. And then when Logan comes calling, it's Logan, buys her first class ticket to get to Neptune so she can help him. And then when she gets to the airport, there's Logan, played as always with great mischief, but a bit of melancholy this time, by Jason Dohring. And he's wearing this white, pristine Navy uniform. And here we have our first character who has changed. And he has. It's amazing. Veronica, in her lawyer outfit, has not changed at all. She has hidden who she is. But Logan, he's different. He got his life together. He dealt with the Navy, which, by the way, they don't get a lot of sleep. It's a tough gig being in the Navy. And he had a stable relationship despite the beliefs that he killed Bonnie, his ex. Of course, he did not. We know Logan and Weevil never do the things that they get accused for doing. It's an amazing contrast because while she has been sort of hiding who she is, he has been growing into the better parts of himself. And that, of course, makes him into a very exciting love interest for her, and maybe bad news for Piz. But because characters can't quite change entirely, because one, we wouldn't recognize them and that would annoy us because we love the characters to begin with, and two, because people don't change completely. We just can't. Our nature doesn't change that much. There's still some of the charming aspects of Logan, such as he still lives with Dick and he still serves. So it's not a huge 180, but he unlike her, changed in the ways that have made him a better person, and this version of him that was stamped down by childhood abuse and Lily's murder has emerged, and it's very appealing. And as she works through her addiction to solving crimes, she also works through her addiction to him. She talks about him as an addiction. Maybe it's like being addicted to water in this case. At least in the movie. We'll see what happens in season 4. But at least in this iteration of these beloved characters' lives, I would say he's good for her. And Veronica deserves something that's good for her. Keith Mars, played by Enrico Colantoni, like the dad we all wish we had, is one of the characters who has always been exactly himself throughout the whole series. He is Veronica's rock, her biggest champion, and they don't go into this, but I wonder, as these 9 years have unfolded and Veronica has clearly not been back to the Neptune at all, maybe a little bit, but not much. She's really been completely detached from this life, what it has been like for him. He had this brilliant, beautiful, vivacious daughter with whom he has the greatest repartee, and it was his life. Anytime he tried to date, she was annoyed by it in some way, so it didn't work out. But we don't see him dating anybody now, so who knows what happened in those 9 years. But he didn't make a life with anybody else because she is his life. And when they first see each other, she surprises him because she didn't tell him she was coming to help Logan, because of course he would rather she stayed with Piz in New York, having the life that he thinks she wants and that he feels she has worked for. But when we first see them together, she surprises him and she goes into his PI office and he's busy and there's people waiting and the phone keeps ringing and ringing and ringing. And there is her old desk, and she picks up and she does her job really well. And you can see that he didn't even replace her there either. He doesn't have an assistant, though he clearly needs one. It's full of manila envelopes. His life is very chaotic without her, but because he loves her so much, he is willing to let her go and then just live in the knowledge that she's going to be happy somewhere else. But of course, she isn't. One of the things that has happened as Neptune becomes more difficult is that she calls him George Bailey, Jimmy Stewart from It's a Wonderful Life. He is the only one standing up to all the darkness that's engulfing them. And that's a man who does not change and a man who sacrifices, but he could use some help. And at the end, he accepts that his daughter will be back. It's a great portrayal of the kind of sacrifices we make for our children, but also of just how powerful those relationships can be. And again, we have not seen season 4 yet, but I can't wait to see them team up again, because you gotta stick it to whatever those nebulous forces, because we don't actually know what they are that are just completely corrupting the already corrupt Neptune. There are some friendships we have that we will always be in touch. And for Veronica Mars, that is Wallace and Mac. These are people that will never get out of her life, no matter what happens between them. And then there's more circumstantial friendships, and that would be Veronica and Weevil, our beloved Francis Capra. They had great banter and chemistry, but basically it was a little bit transactional, even though there was a lot of affection. She would help him out, he would help her out, she would help him out, he would help her out. And so it goes. As a matter of fact, at the end of season 3, they're like, who owes whom now? And they can't even figure it out. But she has not been in touch with him. Then she runs into him at the reunion and he's wearing slacks and a button down, and he's got the most beautiful wife, and he shows him the picture of this adorable little girl, Valentina, and he says, she rules me. I go to tea parties now. He has exactly the life we would want for him. He owns his own car shop. His record has been spotless for 5 years, and of course it can't last. And it's not about him, it's about the fact that in Neptune, he has never had the chances and opportunities and possibilities that others will have. It's a rigged game for him, just from the way he looks, just from his past. So he ends up getting framed by Celeste Kane, or at least she's part of it, for a crime that he did not commit. And here we go. Now he has to decide what he's going to do, because as it turned out, the besotted father with an auto shop is no match for the forces of Neptune. And if he wants to get cleared, and if he wants to protect the wife and daughter that he loves with all his being, he's gotta go back to the life that shaped him. So as the film grapples with how much we can actually change, some of those changes are going to be internal. Veronica's journey is completely internal. She's got all sorts of other options in New York, she just doesn't want them. But his are not. He internally wants to change, but he doesn't have the options. And I'm guessing when he goes back to that life, it's not as difficult as we thought it would be for him emotionally, because he did like it. But it's a great foil to Veronica and the ways in which she has choices that he has not. Although Veronica Mars predates Jessica Jones, we watched Jessica Jones earlier when it came out. And that was our introduction to Krysten Ritter, who, of course, is also in Veronica Mars. And the Krysten Ritter that we knew as Jessica Jones was very much like Veronica Mars, actually, except way taller and with black hair and stronger physically. But, you know, smartest person in the room always, and completely tough and can't be bothered by anybody, and a little broken and pissed off. And she had this amazing skill where she would call people on the phone and turn into the biggest ditz that ever lived. And it was so fabulous to watch. And then we started watching Veronica Mars, and we're like, oh, there's Kristen Bell turning herself into the biggest ditz who ever lived. And then in season 2 of Veronica Mars, here comes Krysten Ritter, and she's the biggest ditz that ever lived. Her character, Gia, is so ditzy, and it was hilarious because we kept just waiting for the Jessica Jones part of her to come out, the one we knew oh so well. And of course it doesn't. In season 2, she is just a hapless, fairly unintelligent, rich girl with, as it turns out, a tragic family life. And well, in the movie, 9 years later, the outer shell of Gia is very much what she was. She still seems to be that person, except that the way that Krysten Ritter portrays her, there's clearly something happening underneath that wasn't happening with teenage Gia. And at first I thought, well, yeah, her dad turned out to be a horrible pedophile and then he exploded in the air on a plane. That would change you. But it turns out that's not it. She has a much more complicated situation that she has been dealing with for the last 9 years that have turned her into somebody who outwardly gives out one thing and inwardly is a much more complicated tragic figure. It was an amazing change to behold, and it was beautifully portrayed by Krysten Ritter, while Logan, our other most changed character, changed for the better. The pain that she's going through and the difficult situations that she's experiencing did give her more depth, but at a very, very, very high cost. I ended my videos about season 2 and season 3 of Veronica Mars by talking about Ryan Hansen's Dick Casablancas, because he is one of the most fascinating, he's not complex, but he's fascinating, not complex characters in the whole show. So I figured he deserves the final spot in this video as well. And in a film that is all about whether we can or can't change, he is the one who has changed the least. Everybody else at least got jobs and they are going in these different directions, but our boy Dick is still Dick. Actually, the only change I could find in him is that he wasn't as eager to hook up with the ladies this time. He was still ogling, making jokes about their boobs and checking them out in all the ways, but I didn't see him at the reunion sort of chasing skirts or tight pants or whatever he would be chasing as he usually would be. But I would argue that's more a matter of time for the film than it meaning that our boy Dick has given up on finding women to carnally engage with. But it's a question that I've always had with this character, which is you can be the boy who coasts on your money and your looks and your I don't care attitude through high school, and you can be that boy through college. I don't even know if he graduated from Hearst or not. When does it start to chafe? When does it start to become something that keeps you from doing the things that everybody else is doing? At this point, I'm guessing they're about 28 or 29, the main characters in the show. And I guess that's not it yet, at least not for Dick. He continues to be one of the greatest man-children in TV. And even as Logan is potentially going to go to jail or even face the death penalty for a murder, Dick is just completely oblivious. Not because he doesn't love Logan. These two, man, they are all the other one has. Logan has Veronica when he has her, and he will always have his love for her, I'm guessing. Again, haven't seen season 4. But Dick, that's it. He's got Logan and the beach. But even as the prospect of losing the closest relationship that he's ever had in his life sort of looms, he just can't. He's just still him. And again, we'll see what happens in season 4. But I guess there are some people like that. Do I hope there are some people like that? I guess I do. I wouldn't want to date them. I might not mind having them as friends in the broader circle of my friendships. I certainly don't want to be them. But maybe we need some people like that who figure out who they were at the age of what? I don't even know. Probably 5. And they stuck with it. They're not big into transformation and evolution of the soul and the spirit, but they figure out how to make it through the world, and that's how they go about it. And in a film where everybody was grappling with how much you can change in 9 years, there's again comfort in the fact that some people can change not at all. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know. What are your thoughts on whether people can and should change? And what are your thoughts on the ways that the characters changed or didn't in the film? And what are your thoughts on the film? I'm interested as to why people don't like the film, because I really liked it. Please like, share, comment, and as always, stay big-hearted.